Daniel Gunnert here with North County Gymnastics and the Jiminy Kids on Gymnastics is More Than, where we're going to be talking about all kinds of things that don't even relate to flips. I do have a special guest with me, but I'll let him introduce himself.
Hello there. My name is Major Wedgie. I'm here to answer all your questions.
Well, welcome. And, you know, for those of you guys that know Quin's a goofball. And partly, he was much of my inspiration when I started dressing up. So, anyways, Quin, go ahead and take a seat. Thank you for coming. And, you know, part of the reason I was wearing this, well, initially I wore this toothpaste because I want people to want to come on this podcast, and I figured if I brush my teeth and I had good breath, people are more likely to come on. But then later I found out that Quin has a dentist appointment today at 2, so I thought, what better costume?
You're making me nervous already.
So anyways, Quin, tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your background.
I grew up in a galaxy far, far away. I started gymnastics late, in mid-high school. I always played around in gymnastics, but I started late and thoroughly enjoyed it. I did wrestling too in high school, but they didn't have gymnastics in the school that I went to. And then when we moved out to Arizona, my junior year of high school, I got more involved in gymnastics and continued. I walked on to ASU's team. My sophomore year, my freshman year, I just trained because I knew I wasn't anywhere near ready. Mm-hmm. And I got to be on ASU's gymnastics team for 4 years and graduated in 1981. Through college, I coached part-time, you know, to pay for stuff. Mm-hmm. And then got a job in a lab for a couple years. I have degrees in biology and chemistry. I got a job for a couple years.
You know, it's hard for me to see you staying serious and focused enough to be in a job like that.
It was hard. You know.
Did you dress up back in the lab?
No, I didn't dress up, but I did things like, you know, on payday, I would staple everybody's time cards to the ceiling.
Oh, I'm sure they love that.
You know, things. I grew bored. And then I was on this fateful bike ride with, because I was training for triathlons, with a good friend who owned a big gym in Arizona. And he mentioned that he was going to have, start a developmental girls team. And did I know anybody? And as the more we talked about it on the bike ride, I said, you know what, I'd kind of be interested. And that was 1983. Wow. So it's been a long time. So I coached there for many years. I coached college gymnastics in Utah.
By the way, did you have a specialty when you were in college? Did you have a favorite event? Did you do all around?
When I walked on at Arizona State, I wanted to be an all-arounder. And so the first event we got to was floor. Yeah. And I got there and I did floor, and they kind of cringed and looked at me. And then they said, okay. And so then we went to pommel horse, and I spent 5 minutes on pommel horse, and they said I would never touch the pommel horse again as long as I was at ASU.
That must have been encouraging.
And then I went to rings, and that's my best event. So I did all right on rings. Then we went to vault, and I did, you know, respectable on vault. We went to parallel bars, and I did okay on parallel bars. And then I went to high bar, and I got up and I went kip cast, handstand, giant, blind change, front giant, pirouette, giant flyaway. And they said, wow. And they said, you know, that was really good and clean. What else can you do? I went, that's it. Okay, you're never going to go high bar.
What?
So after a few weeks, I realized that I should just specialize. So I did rings and vault. Mm-hmm. And so, and that's what I did. So rings was my specialty.
And then fast forward to now you're coaching college gymnastics. Where were you coaching?
At Utah State University in Logan.
And you're coaching boys or girls or both?
Women.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference or just kind of where it took you?
You know, I first started coaching boys in college, but it just kind of gravitated to girls, mainly because there were more girls that needed to be coached.
Mm-hmm. So. And what do you remember about Title IX when that happened?
It just became more and more difficult to provide scholarships and funding for the school. I literally never knew if I was going to have a job until July 1st of the next year.
That's stressful.
So it was. Stressful for the assistant coach and real stressful for the head coach. Mm-hmm. So that was difficult.
Well, so, you know, I know that the funding was basically Title IX, where it's equal funding for men's and women's sports. So, of course, men's is cut first, the men's gymnastics team on many schools, right?
Yes.
So it just seems like there's more women, like you were saying, to be taught. So how long were you at the school, and what was that experience like? Because it seems to me like that would probably be a pretty good way to start your career and then, branch off into all the other things you've done.
I was there 4 years. Mm-hmm. It was a great experience. I love working at a university, and especially this school. They really cared about the kids, and education was number one, and the athletes were, the sport was number two. They spent a lot of time with the kids. I enjoyed because I got to develop kids still through college. It wasn't just managing, but as about the third year, I began to feel like it just wasn't my niche. I missed developing the younger kids and getting them to college. Yeah. So I missed that. And then again, the stress for that. And I have to admit that living in northern Utah, 17 miles from the Idaho border, was not my idea of a good time. Every single time we got 3 days off, I would drive 12 hours down the 15 to San Diego.
And you live close to the beach now, right? Aren't you into surfing?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't even imagine you there. It seems to me like college, too, would be pretty serious, Were you a goofball back then? Did you make your kids laugh even at the highest levels?
My very first day at the university was in the summer, and they were having summer gymnastics camp, and we did Wizard of Oz warm-ups at camp, and after camp, I was looking at the athletes, and they're looking at me like, this guy is wearing a Dorothy suit. So I just left it on for training after camp. And I'm coaching this girl on vault, and she's looking at me, and I said, what, you've never been coached by a man in a dress? No? Well, get used to it.
Yeah. I mean, if you could focus with Quin in a dress, then you could focus during anything, so I'm sure that was part of your approach.
And I did do a rec program associated with the university. It was like extra money, and I got to cut it up there, But you're right, at an actual college competition, it's serious, and the girls have to be serious, and you want to make sure that they do their very best job. I mean, so it is serious, and the focus was on them. Mm-hmm. So
let's talk about your leadway into becoming a clinician and doing camps, because I've been to a couple of your presentations at Congress. You're incredible. One of the best clinicians I've ever seen. And so, how did that start? When did you get into teaching other teachers?
That's a good question. I had the Gymnastics Association of Texas has a very big Congress. They have their own Congress, and it's usually Labor Day weekend. And I was asked to speak there a couple times, and I thoroughly enjoy it. First off, one of the things that my father did when I was a young boy and through high school is he really encouraged me to do public speaking in high school, and I competed in public speaking.
Really?
So, not that I was good at it, but that never bothered me, and as a matter of fact, I love having an hour where I can talk to people about something I'm passionate about, and it never makes me nervous. I get excited a little bit, but so I thoroughly enjoyed it. Well, after GAT, then USA Gymnastics, I guess they heard, and I started doing it. And I think the reason why coaches like me is because I'm just that coach in the gym. Yeah. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm not trying to I'm just saying, this works for me, this doesn't work for me. Yeah. And I think that it's just basically a bunch of people sitting around talking about gymnastics.
Yeah, and I think your message is so effective and well heard, and I think you're so well liked because you're fun, you're funny, you're knowledgeable, and we have to remember that kids come into the sport because they want to have fun. Sometimes gymnastics gets real serious real quick.
And it shouldn't be serious all the time. Well, people shouldn't be serious all the time.
That's what we're in toothpaste. And
I know.
Captain Wedgie. And so let's go back to public speaking real quick, just because I don't know if you know this, but most people are not comfortable public speaking. So the fact that do you think that you're not nervous because your dad put you in it and it gave you some confidence from an early age? You didn't think twice about it, or you kind of had a knack for it? Because I remember in high school, I think I had one assignment to do public speaking. It's an important thing. It was the scariest thing ever. I mean, people rate public speaking above death and spiders and deep water and all that stuff.
I know.
So what is it? How did you...
You know what? I enjoyed competing in it. There were different divisions. One was you have a prepared speech, and I would go ahead and give my prepared speech and compete in that. Then there was one called extemporaneous speaking. And in extemporaneous speaking...
I can't even say that.
you would have a file of a notebook, a file of information, and you would draw out of a hat, and it would say nuclear disarmament, and you would have to give a 5-minute talk on nuclear disarmament in an hour. So you had an hour to prepare a talk, and that was like really stressful. But when you finished it, you felt amazing. You know?
Well, it seems like if you can do that, then you can probably talk about anything, anywhere. If you're,
especially if I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, sometimes you would get a topic, you'd go, and sometimes the topic was something that I didn't particularly agree with, but you know, you were forced to do that. I did do speech and debate too, but I wasn't as proficient as debate. But it was fun, and I think it's kind of like gymnastics, where you know most of our kids are just great students.
Yeah.
And people say, does gymnastics make the great student, or is that great student attracted to gymnastics? I think it's both.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. When you're passionate about something and you want to tell people about what you're doing, you get up and you walk up and down the aisles and you tell jokes and you tell stories, and it's easy.
Yeah. And I this wasn't even what I was meaning to talk to you about today, but I am fascinated in that, only just because I feel that there's so many people that have things to say that don't have the courage to say it, you know, and
Absolutely.
It's important. And that's also what we're trying to teach our kids when they come to gymnastics. I mean, they're on stage when they're on balance beam. I mean, Val Condos always talks about how balance beam is a parallel for life. You know, having the courage to go out there and show what you do, whether you mess up, you mean you're being judged. I mean, that takes tremendous courage. You know, do you have any tips for people that have something to say? You know, for example, this podcast, this is not something I initially wanted to do, but I keep pushing myself outside my comfort zone because it's something I want to do. It's just like I knew it took some work and some, you know, if it wasn't for COVID, this would be like a silver lining in that. And I'm grateful for that.
Yes.
You know, how do you get to the point where you, push yourself outside that comfort zone?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's sometimes necessity. And, you know, where this situation where, well, what do I do? And you start thinking of fun things to do.
Yeah.
And it might be fun and scary, and it might be just scary. You know, just whatever you want to, however you want to call it. And, you know, I think because I'm attracted to gymnastics, fun and scary is gymnastics.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's the sport.
So let's talk about camps. You do camps all over the place. What is it that you like about camps? What do camps bring to the gymnastics community?
I love camps. I like camps because here's a kid, whether they're in a preschool camp or you know, like a day camp or in a sleepaway camp, they're going to a new place and they're working with new coaches and new teachers, and they're meeting new kids. And think back about your camp memories.
Yeah.
The friends you made at camp. The friends I made at camp are still my friends. I think that's where I started dressing up in the silly costumes, doing camp warm-ups. We would have a competition at camps. The coaches would see who could do the craziest warm-up.
I'm sure you won every time.
No. As a matter of fact, I learned from the masters. There were people that would come with crates of costumes.
Who are some of those masters?
Ginny Wilmerding is a college professor at the University of New Mexico, and she was also a ballet dancer, so she would do dance there. And her costumes were amazing. They were just amazing. And then one of my mentors that owned Desert Devils was named Stormy Eaton, and Stormy always dressed up in costumes and did the crazy things. And he was, you know, instrumental and encouraged us to do the silly things for the kids. That's how I got started in that. Camp is just an opportunity for kids to just break away from their normal day-to-day training and do that. I always feel sorry for higher level athletes whose coaches don't allow them or don't let them go to camp, to a higher level camp, because they're afraid they're going to learn poor technique or possibly get hurt or things like that. And I always just feel sorry for them that they're missing out on a really neat and fun experience. And it, you know, like you were just saying, gymnastics can't be all serious. It's got to be a little fun, meeting new kids, stuff like that. So I just love camps, you know.
For me, if we go to competitions, I look for the kids, and I know judges do the same thing. the judges want to see that the kids are having fun while they're performing their routine on floor. And that's one thing I really love watching the UCLA team. They're all smiling. There are some teams that are out there and they're all business and they're good, and to each their own. But I think just seeing a higher level team like that, that's recognized and they have all kinds of awards and accolades, they go out there and they have fun.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of their success. You can you have fun and can you be a top level gymnast?
Well, and the part because they're having fun, they stay in the sport longer and they train harder.
Yeah.
So that it all comes together.
Kind of goes with like intrinsic motivation. They're more likely to be internally motivated when they're enjoying what they're doing.
And when you get those crowds, that must be amazing.
Yeah.
Because we never had those crowds.
It's like supercharged, right?
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what does an outline at one of your camps looks like? Because you're probably being asked to do camps now. What does a camp look like? How long is it? What are the activities involved? And I'm sure a lot of it is team building and friendship stuff that you talked about. Walk us through just a rough outline.
On a typical day, kids get there and there's a team building fun game activity for the first part, and then there's for maybe 20 minutes, and then there's about a 20-minute warm-up period where it's the general stretching and then sport-specific stretching. Then after that, it's anywhere from 40 to an hour rotations where they go to different events, and then a little lunch break, and then 2 or 3 more rotations. The rotations can be the events. It can also be nutrition. It can be sports psych, and so there's all sorts of things. And then really, especially for the higher level camps, you can't ask the kids to train much more than 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
They're toast. And after 3 days of that, you really do need to have a down day. So I'm a pretty big proponent of just the 3-day camps, especially if you'll notice most of the college programs have 3-day camps, because kids will go great guns for 2 or 3 days, and then after that, they're getting tired. And even in the week-long camps, usually Wednesday or Thursday's a down day where they just do a half-day training and then go to a lake and go play and things like that. And then at the end, everybody gets back together at the end of the day and does another team building activity, and you meet other kids, and it's pretty fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, it seems like a kid's ideal situation. I mean, I can imagine my kids wanting to go to a camp like that. Partly, you get to get away from parents. It's a break from monotony everyday life. That's part of the reason I like to dress up too. It breaks things up. It's fun. It's funny. Kids, it's like being in compulsory. You just do. You have to do the same thing as everybody else in the routine. There's only so many ways that you can break out of that. But I think that's kind of a parallel for life. Like, we got to go through the motions. Life is repetitious, right? But we can still have fun. We can dress up. We can do these things.
Yeah. And it doesn't just have to be at meets. As a matter of fact, sometimes in a fairly high level meet, I won't dress up because the focus has to be on the athlete and what they're doing.
Just that makes me laugh, just the thought of, being at a...
Well, this year is a good example. We have had a level 8, and she was getting ready to compete this new floor routine. And the new floor routine has kind of like a vocal orchestration part where a lady kind of sings, "Ah." Well, I wanted to dress up in a black sequin gown with a wig, and the first time she could be, have a little microphone and do that part. And I was so excited to do it, and she ended up hurting her elbow and was out for I missed a couple meets, and then the next meet was going to be like state championships.
Yeah.
And I just told her, I said, "Sweetie, I'm not going to wear a black sequin dress at your state championship floor routine. I want you to think about what you're doing." And she was so disappointed. She was like, "Oh, I really wanted that." So
that would have been epic.
But it is. Do I dress up at home with my kids? We used to. Of course, we all had Star Wars outfits and things like that. It's just fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be meaningful to you too. I mean, I follow you on social media, and I can't tell you how many times parents have said, show pictures from before, like, "You've had such an impact on my child." And rarely does the conversation talk about accolades. Not that there aren't any, but they talk about, the connection that you had with their child, enjoying the sport, the love for the sport. I mean, how does that feel? Because that happens on a regular basis.
You know what? It's scary. It is scary that I'm coaching and I'm coaching gymnastics. I'm trying to make it as fun as possible. And you don't realize the impact you're making on kids until, years later. And most of the time it's been really good. There have been times when, I was reminded yesterday about the time that we took a young athlete and got her to lean up against a pole, and we taped her hands behind a pole and during camp, and was teasing her. And I think about that, and I think that wasn't very fair. And I'm remembering it was your wife.
My wife.
Yes.
That was Melanie.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to bring this one up.
We got her to do it, and then we taped her hands behind the pole, and she was stuck there. And I'm thinking, why did I do that? Did she think it was funny? I don't know. So you'll have to come back to me and let me know how that was. But for the most time, it is really, I know. But for the most part, it's good positives. You know what? Quite often, especially when you're training high levels, we're in the gym and with the kids more than their parents.
Yeah.
And it's really, really important to me that we have a great relationship with the parents and we work together to help raise that kid and to raise them right. And gymnastics inherently is going to help the kid, skill building, planning, time management. It helps for everything, but more than anything, the coach has to guide.
Yeah, I agree. More often than not, I find the parents are very supportive. The majority of them. There's some that feel like it's us against the coaches when there's issues come down to which group they're going to be in and move ups and stuff like that. How do you work with the parents and letting them know that we're all in this together? It's not us against you. We're all advocating for your daughter or your son or your.
I spend a lot of time talking to them at the beginning of the season.
And what's a lot of time? You have a banquet. You have a sit down.
At the beginning of the season, we'll sit down and we'll have a parent meeting, group parent meeting. Then after the group parent meeting, we actually spend time with each parent. We talk. Yeah.
Who's
and
we?
We meaning our coaching staff.
So like you and any of the supporting staff with that parent one-on-one?
Usually one or two coaches.
Wow.
And we talk about the kid's plans, what our plans are for that kid for that year. And then just prior to the season starting, especially if it's a kid that's competing in the spring, we'll sit down and do, in December or usually in November, and we'll sit down and say, here's where we're at, and have communicating. And that way, if there are any difficulties, that we can go through there.
It's just so genius because it's a proactive approach to dealing with issues that are probably going to come up and
it's time consuming and it's monotonous and it's hard, but it's really worth it.
So, but does that take a couple days? I mean,
it takes a week.
So no coaching for a week. You just schedule.
No. You have scheduled meetings before practice and then after practice.
And how long? 15 minutes maybe? You try to keep it to that?
30.
30.
Yeah. And it might last 15.
Yeah.
But sometimes it lasts longer.
Do you find sometimes it's hard to even get parents there for scheduling issues, or do most parents pretty good about getting there to talk about it?
Most parents, especially the new ones, are very excited about it. The parents that the kid's been with you for 4 or 5 years, do we need to talk?
Yeah.
We're all right. Let's go.
And then
come on in. 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes.
Okay. Now, I think that's important. And we do something where we talk to them before the season. We have a meeting. We go through our policies and stuff. We give them a chance to ask questions. But I think that doing that adds a personal touch, and it shows that they really care. Because oftentimes, I think in the big groups, sometimes the kids don't feel like they're, seen, or maybe they don't get the attention they deserve. So I really like that. I think that's...
And parents are great about giving you insight on how you can motivate their kids.
Yeah.
They've been with them. So parents are usually super helpful.
So let's go back to camps. You had talked about doing lunch, nutrition, sports psych. I mean, they spend 30 to 45 minutes on the event. Where do you like to be in that rotation? Where do people put you? Let's say, Quinn, I want to hire you to do this camp. These are your responsibilities. What do those look like?
Usually on vault and bars. When I coached in Arizona, I was fortunate enough to have some very talented vaulters. And so I coached the elite national and level 10 national vault champions quite often. But it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
It was, we vaulted an hour a day.
Yeah.
Between vault and tramp, an hour a day, kids get really good. I do tumbling too, not as much as I used to. And then I do bars. I'm that guy up on bars teaching toe circles, teaching giants, teaching the circling elements and the stuff and the kip cast hand pirouettes, the things that kids really, when you have a level 6, level 7, when they go to camp, that's what coaches want their kids to be working on.
Yeah.
So I get up and I work hard and try to get the kids introduced to some of those skills. I don't particularly like coaching beam because it's not my forte.
Yeah.
But I'll do it.
Yeah.
I've done the sports psych, but I think there's people who are better at that. Mm-hmm. And then nutrition, same thing. But I kind of like to do a little bit of everything. I like the camps where I'm at one event for the 3 days. Mm-hmm. So I can do the progression.
With the whole group, because they all probably rotate through.
Right. And so I know where everyone's at, and so I can hit the ground running on day 2. I know where that kid's going. I know what we did the day before. So I like the camps that do that. It really helps me as a coach.
Yeah.
Some of the camps, because they'll want to kind of put me everywhere so everybody gets a chance, and sometimes it's not as gratifying.
Mm-hmm. I know this is a pretty broad question, but you had mentioned before some gyms don't feel comfortable sending their gymnasts to camps because different gyms have different philosophies, which is fine. When you go to a camp and you're teaching, where's your head at? What's your coaching philosophy while you're there at that camp?
If I get a kid and I ask them their goals, what do they want to work on at camp? I'll talk to them about how they want to do that. For instance, if a kid wants to learn a blind change, I'll say, how is your coach teaching that skill? Yeah. And they'll usually explain what they're doing, and I'll go from there. And I'll say that there's several different ways to learn this. Would you like to start working on the other way? You want to continue what you're doing and go from there. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty good about that. One of the things that I think that I've, especially lately in the last 8 to 10 years, I've gotten pretty good at circumventing issues that kids have. Mm-hmm. Kids that are afraid to back tumble. Kids that are afraid to do a flyaway on bars. How can you teach that kid skills, higher level skills, that will work around that workarounds?
Yeah.
Because you're not going to correct a fear issue at camp in 3 days.
Probably not.
But you can give them tools so that they can work around it, work something else, and then work on that on the side.
When I'm coaching here, I can have an issue with a kid for whatever reason. It's not getting through with them. It's a simple correction, and to me, I've tried different ways. They go with a different coach for one time in a different group, and the coach says the right thing, and all of a sudden, the kid's got it. They'll come back to my group, and I'll say, "My goodness, how did you get your back leg straight on your split jump on beam when I've been working with you on that for 8 months?" And it's like, I don't know, they just said, feel this in my leg when I push off the beam, and now I can do it. I was like, great. How often you come across that in camp where you just have a different approach that seems to work with that kid, and then they're just like, wow.
All the time. Yeah. And the same thing where you're at camp and the kid improves from another coach. Yeah. And the first thing you do is go up to him and say, what did you do?
Yeah.
I had a level 8 gymnast that was training Suks and Yurchenkos, but Yurchenko wasn't going to happen. And we were approaching Christmas. And I said, okay, we're just going to do Suks. And so she went home, went to go visit her grandfather for the holidays. Her grandfather owns one of the biggest gyms in Colorado.
Yeah.
And came to me and said, I'm going to be doing Yurchenkos. I said, oh, you are you? And she said, yes. I said, so I set up for Yurchenkos, and she goes and busts out a beautiful tuck Yurchenko. I said, give me the phone. I said, what's your grandfather's number? And I said, Gene, what'd you do? Yeah. And he starts explaining. I said, never mind. I spent a week at his gym that summer because he did amazing things. So, everybody has their own thing, and kids respond to different coaches too.
It's true, and I think if we leave the ego aside, the kids are more likely to progress, right? And we have groups here at this gym, but we rotate and we take turns with different things, because I think that it can be efficient that way. And I don't think there's necessarily a right or wrong way. It's kind of like, to each their own. There's different philosophies, which is why there's so many different gyms. People can go to the ones that's best for them. So let's hop to what we're going through right now. What does gymnastics look like, going into the fall season? I was just on with Diane, and we were talking about how maybe Excel might be the first group to compete. I mean, we just have no idea. So since there's so much that's uncertain, where do we even begin?
So much is uncertain, and nobody knows. Nobody knows if there's going to be an uptick in the people getting sick. It is really, really serious. We had one of our coaches and her husband very, very sick with it. Fortunately, they're recovering now, but it's bad. Mm-hmm. And you don't want any of your students getting that. So you can't say what's in the future. And one of the reasons I dressed up like Major Wedgie today is because the first thing we need to do is clean our gyms and to make it that social distancing thing. So making sure that everyone's staying the proper distance apart, especially at the very beginning and working our way through the first few months. And everybody's got their techniques, and we can talk about that. Mm-hmm. Then the second thing is bringing back those athletes, bringing the kids in and training them and doing strength and conditioning and flexibility for the first at least 4 weeks. And that's where Major Wedgie comes in, because the kids crack up when I dress up like a drill sergeant and come in and we do cadence and songs and things like that, and it makes that mundane 2 hours of conditioning 3 days a week fun. So we'll do that, and then afterwards we're going to tread lightly and start developing skills. My hopes are all those kids that had aches and pains and boo-boos in the middle of the season, they're all better now.
Sometimes time like this is great to recover.
And everyone's going to be eager to get back in the gym. I'm afraid that they're going to be eager to do a lot of skills.
Too much, too fast.
So we're going to have to temper that. Mm-hmm. And then, without even looking at a timeline, then we'll have to sit and look and see where is it. And if it's the middle of the fall or the beginning of the fall, we're like, woohoo! We might be able to get a little tail end of the fall season. If it isn't, then it's going to be a spring season. And if for God forbid anything happens that delays it more, going to be there. So I think the smartest thing and the least frustrating thing for me is to not look at when kids are going to compete or anything like that. It's to how can we get them back in the gym? How can we gradually build so there's more kids in the gym without making risking anybody's health, and then turn around and look at the calendar and say, I put away my calendar. After the last month, I had this calendar it was completely listed with all the things I was going to do this summer. I just put it away and said, you know what? It is what it is.
And so, when the kids start coming back in, I'm trying to develop a plan on how to explain it to them, because there's a lot of positives that have come out of this, and that's what I want to focus on. The kids are already feeling down, so what kind of things can we be telling the kids, as we begin?
Boy, am I glad to see you. This is going to be great. And be excited about it. Be as positive as you can. Don't be so pessimistic about, woe is me. I know it's hard for gym owners because woe is you. I mean, with all the financial difficulties. And so that you got to be as positive as you can and encouraging. And I think it's a great time for goal setting. All the things that we've been doing for the last 2 months, I'll bet you the kids have too. I bet you they've all sat down. These are the kids that get involved in gymnastics. They probably sat down and talked about what they want to work on and what they want to do it. And it's a great time for, it might be 2 hours of conditioning, but maybe another additional amount of time talking about our goals and strategies to move forward.
I think that's a good motivator. If I could highlight this, it would be, boy, am I glad to see you. What kid doesn't want to hear that? If you think about it, the kids have been through the ringer, as far as, being isolated to some degree, and they do the Zoom calls and stuff, but that's not quite the same. So just, bringing them in on a positive note, to me, is the most important thing, the most important part. We are happy to see you. Welcome back.
I know. And we will be. I keep thinking as things get, further and further delayed, part of my mind goes back and I start thinking, what other marketable job skills do I have? What could I do? And I keep thinking, no, I don't want to think about that. I just want to coach gymnastics and sell gymnastics equipment, and that'll be fine. I don't need to do anything else.
I do appreciate there's been a lot of innovation that's happened through this. It's in business, and when markets are at a low, the money doesn't really go away. It just goes to those that adapt. It's just the way it is. So, with the growth mindset, a lot of great things I think personally have come from this for our industry and also for our business. And those are the things I'm trying hard to focus on. I was on with Ann Josephson. She's like, you have to acknowledge your feelings, both positive and negative, so you can process these and come out, with the growth mindset. I can't remember exactly what she was saying, but it is important to acknowledge, and we have to be emotionally ready to come back when these kids are back in the gym.
And it is teaching us that virtual training is a possibility, and it's a great situation.
Yeah.
So in addition to our in-person training, we could be doing virtual training. It's kind of made me realize that when I give Congress lectures, I could do that virtually and make it almost as impactful.
Yeah.
And I would love to do that. So I've been going back and looking at my Congress lectures. Unfortunately, a lot of the skills and drills I have involve spotting and maybe partner skills and things like that. So I'm going to have to tweak them a little bit. But it's making us realize that it's not just about that in the gym training. It's a huge package of meetings, Zoom meetings, and training outside, and all that stuff.
Yeah, and sometimes I think, maybe this is a precursor to something that eventually, this is going to happen again, and we don't know how bad. And not to say that this isn't bad, but luckily it wasn't worse than it was, because I feel like as a society and the technology we have, we were prepared within reason. So it's pretty cool that right now we can do this, stay positive, offer content. We do the Zoom classes, people go live, we're doing podcasts, content right now is king. And, I think moving forward, we're going to be moving more and more into a digital era, regardless of, when and if we get back. So that's exciting to me. Just kind of, it did give us a nudge in that direction.
And like you were saying, it forces you to do something that's out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it is a new skill set.
Yeah.
And you realize you are reaching kids, because that's about my deal.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years, it's been my mission to encourage and inspire young coaches and new coaches to be involved in the sport and reach out to people. And I feel like this is going to be a great avenue to do it.
I hope so.
So I am excited about that.
And I'm glad I saw that post, and I'm passionate about it. I think that folks need to realize that gymnastics is a career, and it can be a career, and there's a place for it where it's not a side job till you get a real job. Gymnastics, in my opinion, and hopefully after this, will be booming. So, I'm optimistic on that front, and I think there's a lot of ways to do it. We can get into that on another day, but we'll end there. Sergeant Wedgie, thank you very much.
Major Wedgie.
Major Wedgie.
That's the whole idea. It's Major Wedgie. Oh man, dude, you got a major wedgie.
My brain is fried. You can tell already. I'm Daniel Gundert signing off. Gymnastics is more than you guys. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, man. You're awesome.
Yeah, thanks.